When I was a kid, I had the benefit of working for, working around, and getting to know some extremely wealthy people. Whether they knew it or not, I was paying close attention to what they were doing to make some money. Let's take a look. I'm randomly going to select 100 of you to receive your own gold-plated coin. I used to carry around a gold coin kind of similar to this one right here. Not to spend, but because it reminded me of wealth, and it was a symbol for me of what was to come and what I could achieve financially. As a thank you for your support, I want to give you a little piece of motivation to remind you of what you can achieve and the results that you can get in life. So, when this channel hits 500 subscribers, I'm randomly going to select 100 of you to receive your own gold-plated coin. These coins are real currency from around the world that have been plated in 100 mils of fine gold. Now, this might not make you rich, but it just might give you enough inspiration, as sometimes just holding a little bit of wealth in your hands can make you feel a certain way and drive you to go out and achieve the best results. My hope is that you not only achieve all of your financial goals, but also that you then take that knowledge and go out and pass it back to the world. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button, like this video, and you are automatically in the running. At about 14, 15, 16 years old, I was spending a lot of time working with my dad while growing up. We got to work in a lot of really fancy houses. Sometimes, we'd be on a, construction job a long time. Maybe it was a week, maybe it was 2 weeks, maybe longer. I would get to know some of the children who were my age who may live in these nice houses. A couple times I became friends with them. I remember this one particular kid that we'd work in the house, and every day when I'd go through the garage, I would notice his little jam room, we called it, a little music type studio of where he had some drums and guitars and amps. And me being a musician myself, I asked him about it, and one thing led to another, and I started going over there to jam with him, once a week or so. One thing I noticed when I would go over there, how when you're a kid and you go to someone else's home and you always know they have a little bit more money than you, right? Maybe the cars in the driveway are a little bit nicer. Maybe it's a nicer part of town, like a more elegant neighborhood. Just certain things. You're like, yeah, we do okay, but these people have money. That's how I felt about, this kid. Another thing I noticed was that his dad was kind of always home. Not always, but, I'd get there at 2 o'clock after school or 2:30, and we'd go start our jamming, and the dad would be out by the pool on a phone, maybe making some notes and making some calls. I'm thinking my dad works all day, and he doesn't get home till 6, 7 o'clock at night, sometimes even later than that. I wondered what his dad did. I'm starting to put two and two together. They have a little bit of money. They're kind of wealthy. The dad's always around. What's going on here? So, of course, I asked the son, the kid I was jamming with, and he didn't really seem to know. Yeah, my dad, he does this. He's a business guy, blah, 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 blah. So one day, the father, whom I'd been dying to talk to and kind of pick his brain a little bit, because that's the type of kid I was always inquisitive about how people earned a living and how they made more money, and how the wealthy, or the 1%, was the wealthy and the 1%, because I always felt like, well, I'm just kind of working here in the trenches and doing my thing. The dad said, he goes, hey, this weekend, Daniel, I'm taking the kids out on my boat. Do you think you'd like to come out for a ride on Sunday? And I said, wow, this is totally awesome. And I was really looking forward to this because I figure it would be a way that I kind of had him sequestered and maybe could ask a few cool questions. Sunday comes, and we meet down at the marina, and I get on his boat, which I thought was an absolutely huge boat. It's 15 years old. The boat was probably between 35 and 40 feet. So it's a good sized boat. I don't know if you'd call it a yacht by today's standards of yachts, but it was pretty awesome. I tried to kind of cozy up to him on the bridge, and while we were, cruising out of Boston Harbor, start to talk to him. First thing I said, where are we going? He goes, oh, we're just going to take a ride around the harbor, and we're going to, maybe end up in, Swampscott or Marblehead, and going to get out of the boat, maybe have some lunch. And I said, oh, well, this day is just really shaping up to be totally awesome. So while we're on the ride, I started to ask him, some questions. And, particularly because, well, I thought he was rich. To me, he seemed rich. I don't know if he was rich, but, he had this boat and he's wearing a nice Rolex and he's always home on the phone, looks to be doing business deals or whatever he's doing. I think I actually used the word rich. Like, are you, rich? He said something interesting. He goes, Daniel, you can't save your way to rich, but you can put your money to work if you give it a job. And he goes, I tend to give my money lots of jobs. I tend to put my money to work. I also noticed that he spent his money in a certain way, right? Like when I got to the house, of course, the house was gorgeous and there's a convertible Mercedes in the driveway. And now here we are on his boat and I'm watching him steer the boat and staring at his Rolex. Like there's signs of wealth, right? So I deduced two things kind of quickly. One is that the rest of us go to work for money. The rich put their money to work. That's kind of the main difference between the working class and someone who maybe makes a little bit more and achieves true financial freedom. The second thing I notice is that they spend their money on what they consider to be assets. In other words, they are buying things of value, but are you just spending your way to wealth? Are they just spending more money and then still somehow having more money? I mean, if I went out and bought that yacht we were on, I'd be broke. So somehow they're spending money on these things and considering them assets more than just something they spent money on. So we ended up going to this marina and we get out of the boat, and right across the street from the marina, you'd cross one little street and there was a whole row of different restaurants and little boutiques and places to go into. So we walk into this pizza place and I go in with his kids and a couple of his friends, and he walks directly into the back. I mean, he walks into this place and goes right into the back like he owns the damn place. Well, the reason why he did that is because he owned the damn place. So he was walking into his own pizza shop. We sit there and we have lunch and we eat our pizza, and in my mind I'm like coming up with about 50 more questions for this guy. So when we get back to the boat, I start to ask him about that. I said, is that one of the places where you put your money to work? And he goes, yeah. He goes, it's kind of twofold. I put my money to work, but it's also an asset. He goes, I don't know if you noticed, but above that pizza place, it's a triple-decker building. He goes, there's 2 apartments above that pizza place. So I actually rent out both of those apartments and I'm making income because the pizza place pays for the whole building. So it pays the mortgage and the insurance and pays to run itself. So I circulate more dollars through that pizza place. I have to put a little bit of the money I make back into that. But the rents that come out of the second and third floor are just about pure profit. For me, that building is an asset and it's paying itself off, but I'm also able to pull out an income. So in that sense, he's putting his dollars to work for him and they're bringing him more dollars, right? It's sort of like sending your $100 soldiers out into battle, but they're bringing more soldiers back. I've realized that, there's a lot of ways and different things you can do, between business and saving your money and putting it to work, but the rich are pretty specific on how they do that. He also said that the rich may buy expensive things, like, I commented on the boat or the watch. We look for things that are going to go up in value. So not just something that's just going to totally depreciate. He goes, we're in this nice boat over here. He goes, but this isn't the first boat that I bought. I bought a boat and it was much smaller than this and it needed a lot of work. I sort of bought it in a little bit of fixer-upper condition and I had to reupholster the seats and kind of make the boat look nice. But I got such a good deal on it that after I fixed it up and used it for a few months, I was able to sell it and actually recoup all my money and make a small profit. He said he used that money to buy his second boat, and he kind of did the same thing. He said he was working up to his dream boat, like the big boat we were on today. He goes, so I bought and sold 2 boats that I bought very much undervalued, and I fixed them up, and then I used that money to buy this boat for cash, so I didn't have to have a payment on the boat. He goes, boats are generally a terrible investment and you lose a lot of money. But with what I paid for this boat in cash, because I made money on the 2 previous sales, he goes, it's actually about a break even. So he goes, I can enjoy it and not have to worry about it. And he goes, and if the market goes up, then maybe I'll even make money when I sell this boat. But for now, we're using it. So he was enjoying his asset, and he had kind of built up to it. So same thing with the property. He said he bought the property and he bought it undervalued and it needed some work. And that's why he decided to turn the first floor into the pizza business, because he thought he could make enough money to pay for the building's renovations and then rent out the other units, which was exactly what he was doing. So these days, when I look at the wealthy, it's sort of like having a magnifying glass or maybe even X-ray vision, because I see how people are living. I see maybe the car they're driving or where they're living and maybe the businesses they own. And it's sort of like being able to see right through it and know what's going on, having a little bit of insight that most people don't have into how these people are achieving their wealth. And I've sort of boiled it down to 3 rules or 3 things that I think about when I think about making money, earning money, and just money in general. The first one is not something I even came up with. I heard Warren Buffett one time talking about all of these rules of money, his rules of money. Of course, he said the first rule of money is what? Don't lose the money. And we work really, really hard for our money. And a big difference between being wealthy and being broke is just that broke people are constantly just spending their money. They come, they get it, they put it in their pocket after a hard week's work, and then they go out and maybe spend it on frivolous, useless items or the next fad or the next thing that everybody's talking about. They buy a lot of point of purchase sale items and they get drawn into things like sales. You don't need everything that's on sale, but because it's on sale, a lot of times they just go out and spend the money. And one thing is for sure, once it's spent, it's gone. The wealthy don't think like that. They think like Warren Buffett. Rule number 1, just don't lose the money. You work too damn hard for it to just give it away frivolously for every little want. The second thing is that I learned to put my money to work for me, just like those wealthy people. In other words, I only have so many hours in a week, just like you, right? We've got the same amount of time. We have 7 days, 24 hours in a day, and we can only work so much and so hard. But if you can stop trading your time for dollars and put some of your money to work for you, I'm not saying that you don't have a job. I'm not saying you don't go and do your 8 to 10 hour grind, whatever it is, because I'm still a fan of that. I don't mind going to work. I don't mind even working hard. I enjoy what I do. But being able to park the money somewhere where I can reel back in a little bit of profit means that money went to work for me. So I gave my money a job. I put it to work, and hopefully it reeled me in a little bit of profit. The third thing I do, and I've kind of always done this since I learned about it, is buy undervalued assets. I mean, I guess I've been doing that since forever. Even when I was a teenager, I used to buy and sell bicycle parts, or my friends that didn't know how to work on their bikes, I'd offer to do it, and I'd go get the parts and sell them the parts and then fix it up. So I've always been an entrepreneur, but one thing I've always done is just bought and sold. It may have started with bicycles, but then it moved into kind of sporting good equipment, and then eventually the businesses that I'm in today, which are musical instruments, as well as recording studios and a lot of music-related products. So I've looked for undervalued assets, and obviously it's the same game. Buy low and sell high. Not too high, right? But you want to buy low as you can, and you want to sell for fair market value, whether it's a car, whether it's real estate, whether it's been a motorcycle, whether it was those bicycles and now, musical gear. The point is that finding undervalued assets, whatever it is also another way of putting my money to work for me. Maybe it's even in something that I can enjoy. Maybe it's a car I'm going to use for a while. Maybe it's a boat I'm going to use for a while. Maybe it's a property I'm going to live in and then flip. But I try and find those assets because that's what the wealthy do, and then hopefully get a little bit of appreciation, build up a little bit of equity in it, and then sell it off. Ultimately, I've realized that wealth is not just the amount of money that you make. It's about being able to live the life that you truly desire. In other words, it's about your day. It's about being able to do what you want to do and comfortably feel like you're living a real life, and not that you're just stressing and going about your days just doing some mundane job or some mundane existence. Life is about being able to do what you truly desire, and that's why it's called financial freedom. My name is Daniel F. Margasa. You are watching The Almost Criminal Millionaire, and if you enjoy the topics of finance, money, and learning about the health and wealth of your bank account, then please like and subscribe for more.